some years ago when I began work, I was working as a project design engineer. And we would design multiple projects, and every so often one would get funded and it would get built. And I had this nagging question at the back of my head, which was, how do these big organisations decide which projects to actually build? So what I did is I went and joined the world's largest mining company, a company that invests $10 billion every year in new projects. And the first thing I learned is that the most important decision any company makes is what real assets and projects it will invest in. Take, for example, Yahoo, which had the opportunity to buy Google for $1 billion and declined. Of course, Google today is worth $2 trillion, 2,000 times what Yahoo could have bought it for. So in hindsight, at least, that decision wasn't the best. So what I learned about 20 years later is that most companies have something they call a process. And ideally, it's got to be the right process. And what the process does is it tells people what steps they need to go through and who needs to approve those steps to progress their project. And critically, what it does is, of all of the things a company could invest in, the process ensures that everything's been properly considered and the right choices have been made. Now, what tends to happen is when people don't get their projects approved quickly, they get frustrated and they tend to blame the process. But there's two important elements that go into making the right investment decision. And they are the right capability and critically, the right culture. Now in Australia, we say culture, but it means culture, the same thing. Now the best way to explain the importance of these three elements is to tell you what happens if you don't have any one of them. So the first one is, we could have the right process and the right capability, but the culture, that's what people actually believe. So if people don't believe in the process, if they don't have integrity, or if they're trying to support their own project rather than the right project for the company, they can all cause problems for the company. As Warren Buffett says, he wants people to be smart, but if they have no integrity, you'd rather they weren't too smart because they can do a lot of damage. So what we have, if we don't have the right culture, is it's dangerous for the company. Now, the second thing we need to have is the right process. Now, if we don't have the right process, what you see in the organisation is chaos. Everybody's pulling in a different direction, things aren't getting done and people aren't working together, and the company's not making the right decisions. So we need the right process. And finally, if we don't have the right capability, it's a bit like a sporting team where people know all the rules of the game, but they've never actually kicked the football. So you need the people with the right skills and experience who know how to play the game. Otherwise, we're not competitive. And when we put all these things together, I call this the investment system. And it's the company's investment system that really determines the investment decisions it makes and whether they're good or poor. And what I like to say is if you have the right process, the right capability and the right culture, you get, in the middle here, systematically better big business bets.